So, I just found out something on the news, and then I looked it up online, then I double checked it, then I went to the state and federal website to see if it was real, and yes, what I'm about to talk about is absolutely verified true. So, there's a medication out there called seraquel, or the generic for it is called Quantipin. Now, it was originally designed for people who were bipolar. Now, when I take this medication, I get heart palpitations, dizziness, headaches. I can't stay awake in the mornings. This horrible symptoms. Now, my mother tried to get me diagnosed by bipolar by drugging me and saying, he's up, he's down. But the truth is, I'm ADHD and always hyper. I'm always hyper. But if you give me downers, I might go a little down. And then when those downers wear off, I'll go back up. And then if you give me more downers, I'll go back down. And then when the downers wear off, I'll go back to normal up. And so my mother did this on purpose. She also was like stealing my swimming medal away and coming up with fantasies with it, trying to tell the doctors I'm self-harming because I'm bumping in the furniture. When I jump into a pool and catch the back of my foot on a fence, my mother's telling my doctors that that's self-harming too. So my doctors just think I'm some nut weirdo. And don't forget, my doctors are only allowed 15 minutes to spend with me a month. So they get phone calls from my mother all month long. They probably got 5 crazy fantasy phone calls from my mother, and then they get 15 minutes of me just complaining about side effects. So they just keep going up and up and up. Well, they just awarded billions or millions of dollars to anybody who is overprescribed Seroquel in this way. If you were overprescribed Seroquel for stuff like sleep, that wasn't supposed to be happening. So if you went into your doctor and you told them you needed something for sleep, and they gave you way too much Seroquel and pushed Seroquel, and then you went into your doctor, like I did, and told your doctor the Seroquel was causing heart palpitations. You told your doctor you were waking up drooling on yourself and you can't pay attention in school. You tell your doctor that you have this fear feeling sinking into you and it doesn't feel good. It almost feels like some type of fear, depression, I don't know, sadness, and it's not a good feeling. You're telling your doctor this and it continues going up and it continues trying to give you more of the medicine that's hurting you. And because you're only 16 years old, you don't know what's going on. You think every doctor knows what they're doing. You don't realize some doctors are just car salesmen who want to make a sale. I didn't realize that. So I'm on like 8 different medications. I'm feeling awful every day. I'm telling my mother, I'm telling program staff, I'm telling my doctor directly, and they're doubling the Seroquel. Then they got me on Thorazine too. We got Thorazine, Seroquel, Trazodone, Remeron, Risperidone. Remeron got discontinued with the Thorazine, so we can take that one out. Risperidone, Lamictal, and that's all the night ones. In the afternoon, we got Risperidone, we got Xanax, we got my mother pushing for Zyprexa. On top of that, in the mornings, we got Adderall or Ritalin mixed in with a couple other medications like Wellbutrin. So we got all these medications all up there. Now, I keep on complaining about bumping in the furniture, having something wrong with my nervous system, having something wrong with it in the cold. I'm falling down. I'm having problem after problem. I'm having lots of problems with my stomach feeling like it's on fire and vomiting first thing in the morning for no reason and dry heaving. I can't eat food. I don't know what's going on. So I tell the doctor, I tell my mother doesn't pay no attention, and the doctor says, just drink a glass of milk in the morning. And then they put me on antibiotics and the vomiting gets much worse. Now it's every single morning, very violent, and it continues all the way for about 3 to 4 hours. So I'm vomiting no longer for an hour in the morning as soon as I can get myself up. Now it's becoming a long thing from the antibiotics. What do the doctors do? Just drink a glass of milk in the morning. Okay, so we know all these facts. We know the doctor overprescribed me when I asked him for sleep medication. All I said is I wanted helping sleep, and my doctor gave me 600 milligrams of Seroquel, and when I complained of heart palpitation and problems, he upped it to 800. I was on 300 milligrams. That was too strong. I told the doctor it was so strong it was giving me problems sleeping because I was afraid I was having some heart problems that made me think I was going to have a heart attack. I was waking up with severe headaches. I told the doctor this. He said, give it some time. You're going to have to give the med some time, and we should go up. So he brings me up to 600 milligrams, and this is Bridgewell Counseling in Chelmsford. At the age of 16 to 18 is when I heard this, but they were doing the same shit with my mother. My mother would just come up with fantasy after fantasy after fantasy. Meanwhile, I get drugged and drugged and drugged based on those fantasies. There's no real world facts. There's no, I mean, did I really steal some kid's swimming medal? Did I really write my old last name on that swimming medal? Absolutely not. That was from the YMCA. I was in my orphanage. They wanted us to just go swimming, so they had us treading water in a pool. Then at the end, they said whoever treads water the longest would get a prize, and everybody else would get a smaller prize. I did the best, so they gave me the medal. The staff member took a Sharpie out of her pocket, wrote ZG on it, told me to make sure that no other kids steal it, gave all the other kids like toys like parachute men and stuff like that, spinners. Then when I got back to the orphanage, I put the medal in my Lego box. I got the Legos for getting some little monthly prize on a piece of paper. They give you this little piece of paper you can hang in your room that says best behaved child for the month. It's a way to get kids to behave better. Anyways, I got Legos for the $10 reward for that, so I put them in the Lego box. So I have two action figures in there, a white one and a black one. I have some Legos in there, and I got now my medal. That's all this orphan has to his name. Well, he goes into foster care, goes sees all these different mothers and fathers. I get to one called Patricia. I decide to show her this medal because she's adopted me. I now have her last name. This medal, I should show it to my mother. I'm just playing with Legos. I come across the medal and go, oh yeah, my mother would love to see this. So I go to my mother, I show her the medal. What do you think my mother does? She creates a fantasy. She says the medal is stolen. She says I have attachment disorder. She says it must be an African American's medal because he's more athletic than a little white kid. So she's also acting racist. I mean, there's no reason for her to believe this. I mean, literally, she didn't see me win it, but she didn't see him win it. There's my name on it. There's no way. I mean, I know where it came from. It came from the YMCA with the staff member who gave it to me. All the other kids saw me get it. I mean, I know where it came from, but did my mother have any reason to believe that this medal was stolen? Absolutely not. All my mother had in her head was, I didn't see him win this, so it must be stolen. And then she just kept on making more and more fantasies. She started with, I didn't see him win it. Then she added to that and said he must have stolen it. And then she added to that and said, well, he must have stolen it from the African American kid because he's athletic. Then she saw my name on the back and she added another fantasy. He must be trying to get back at me by writing his name, even though she has no clue where the hell I would find a marker. And at that age, I'd probably be drawing on myself with a marker. Plus, my handwriting at 7 is terrible. I couldn't make that ZG like that. But my mother's going to keep on going with the fantasies. Then she adds to that and says, oh, my son must be mentally ill and out to get me. So now she thinks people are out to get her. So then she brings me to the doctor, calls me a thief, tells me I'm not allowed to have my medal back. I'm crying and I'm crying in the room for over a week, just crying about my medal. And my mother goes, oh, he's just crying to get attention. So then at the doctor's office, my mother tells all these fantasies to the doctor. And I tell the doctor, that's my medal. I want it in the orphanage. That's why I want my medal back. And I'm crying and crying. And what does the doctor do? He looks horrified at my mother. What does my mother do? It's a fantasy. He's lying. He's making up more lies. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I know for a fact that he wrote this on the back of this medal. I know that he wrote ZG while his name was ZN. So he's out to get me. He's making up fantasies. He's a liar and he's a thief. And I want you to medicate him. And of course, the doctor listens to my mother. Because as far as the doctor's concerned, well, the mother must have saw her son write that. Oh, the mother must have saw somebody else win the medal. That mother must know more than the child. But no, my mother is completely nuts. Because that medal was won in the orphanage. I kept that medal close to my heart as I went through foster care and foster in different homes. I mean, I brought that medal to home way before I met Patricia. Actually, I'm pretty sure one of my other foster parents before I met these ones got to see that medal as well. So people know where it came from. There are lots of witnesses. There's every orphan in the orphanage at St. Anne's. There's a staff member at St. Anne's. There's the staff who know I brought it with me. Why would my mother come up with a fantasy and hurt her child like this? Because that's what my mother did. She was mentally ill. Like one time I came home from school. My favorite toys were gone. I asked my mother why my favorite toys were gone. She said I liked it better than her, so she threw them away. Yes, my mother was so jealous that she was jealous of my toys. Yes. Okay, how about I ate a mushroom and my mother decided to give me extra medication as a punishment. And then she said that for years and years afterwards that this is perfectly fine. It is fine to give extra medication to a child as a punishment or otherwise, is what my mother kept on saying all the way to age until she passed away. So, what do you think the doctors did when I was trying to help myself, telling them I have some problems sleeping. My heart's palpitating from the meds I'm taking. I don't know what's really going on. I'm getting severe headaches and I'm drooling in the morning, doctor. Can we do something about this? Yeah, you got to give the meds more time, the doctor says, and we're going to double the Seroquel. Well, guess what? Now they've awarded money to anybody like me. If you have been overprescribed Seraquel or Thorazine and you're having problems walking, or you've had any problems in the last 20 years since you were overprescribed, and you have records proving that you were overprescribed Seraquel, and if it's just for something like sleep, that's exactly what the lawsuit is for. They're only supposed to be prescribing Seroquel for people who are bipolar. Now, that's what my mother originally was going with on her fantasies. But when I was at the doctor's office and I talked to the doctor for over 2 years, I just told him I wanted help with sleep. I want help with sleep. I want help with sleep. I'm feeling bad. I want help with sleep. I'm feeling bad. I need help. That's what I told the doctor, and he doubled me up on 600 milligrams of Seroquel. I've seen a couple other people take 600 milligrams of Seroquel, and they said they were so hallucinating that they pissed on their floor. Another person said it was like taking 100 Vicodin at once. And yet, during a childhood, I'm taking this every day, and I'm supposed to stay awake during my classes. 600 milligrams of Seroquel at night, and they even tossed me some in the morning, too. Or, sorry, in the afternoon at one time. 50 milligrams in the afternoon. And was it for bipolar? No, they were giving it to me for sleep. Well, why not just give me a Valium and a Ritalin? That's all I needed. I needed Ritalin in the morning, Valium at night. That's it. But guess what? That would require somebody giving a fuck about my health and telling my mother to shut her fucking mouth with the lies already. But no. Even when my mother was calling me jumping into a pool and catching my foot on a fence, self-harming, my father would just let her call my doctor. When my mother was spouting every fantasy and every mental illness in the book, when my mother was trying to convince me I was schizophrenic while I played with toys, when my mother was trying to brainwash me and convince me I had illnesses I didn't have, what do you think my father did? Do you think he told her to shut the fuck up, stop making up stories, stop fucking with that kid's head, stop lying to his doctors, you're gonna get him hurt one day, these medications are dangerous? No, he said, hey, do we have any more gin left in the cabinet? No, I'm going to go to the store. And that's my dad's response. I'm sick on the floor, having problem after problem from age 7 all the way to the day she died. And my father's concern is, hey, where's the pen? I can't find my pen. Oh, there it is. Meanwhile, I'm screaming in the back while my mother calls me schizophrenic and tries to convince me I have schizophrenia, even though the doctors, teachers, me, friends, everybody told my mother to stop this behavior. It's going to get me hurt. During an age 7 in Westford, my mother was bragging to her friends how she likes to give me medication dry. Oh, look at all the medications I got my son on. Oh, yes, I'm such a good mother. Look at all the help I'm getting this child, giving him 5 pills. Yes, 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 yes. Meanwhile, according to the orphanage and all the doctors that saw me before I met this mother, I was normal. I was absolutely normal. All I had to take was Ritalin, ADHD. And after 25 years of looking into this and talking to doctors who don't have my mother's information, yes, I have to talk to doctors and pretend like I'm somebody else and just give them the information. And then I get honest answers. But as soon as they do hear from my mother, as soon as they get any medical records from my mother, I start getting hurt. But I've been able to look into this. Like, for instance, if you're always hyper and you only go down when you take downers, that is not called bipolar. Bipolar is when you go up, down, up, down, up, down with no medication involved. Well, when I'm on no medication, I don't go down. I stay wicked hyper. Even when I'm quiet, I'm hyper and speedy in my head. So, we know it's ADHD, and because I don't go down, we know I don't have bipolar. So I got honest answers there as soon as we stopped taking all the drugs and my mother stopped drugging me. Okay, so we got that figured out. If I'm not going down ever, as long as I'm not on medication, I'm not bipolar. Well, how about some of these other diseases? Like, for instance, depression. I told the doctors I thought I had depression, and I have had depression before. But I've never had any since I went off medication. What's going on? Well, let's go over the times I was depressed. So, I had suicidal thoughts and I was depressed after I was administered 5 medications that have the side effect: if your son has suicidal thoughts, consult the doctor right away. This medication may cause depression. Well, that could have been something to look at. Well, did I ever get this feeling after I came off the medication? No, I did not. Okay, how about when I was off medication? Did I ever become suicidal? Well, oh, there was when I was dying in the woods and I was about to die. Yeah, it was 0 degrees. The hospital just scraped me off the cement and they said I was pronounced dead and they sent me right back out. I knew I might die that morning and I needed someplace that would actually give me warmth. And so, yeah, I was pretty suicidal then because the only way I could stay alive is if I was suicidal. If I stayed in the woods or did nothing, I would be dead today. But I decided to go into the hospital and tell them the situation and tell them that if I had to die in the woods, I would probably become suicidal because I'm already dying and freezing to death of the elements. But that's more fear of the elements and you're already dying. I mean, when people have cancer and they're dying a horrible death and they know they're going to die in 30 days and they're in extreme pain, they do assisted suicide and they don't consider that's different. Okay, well, how about when I'm in an apartment? Do I ever feel suicidal or depressed when I'm in warmth and things are just going bad? Like my girlfriend breaks up with me or I get fired from a job, but I'm indoors and I'm not going to die anytime soon. How do I feel in that situation? Oh, I'm fine. I don't get depressed. I don't get suicidal. I just start panicking and looking for jobs. I get anxiety. Oh, okay. Well, then, how about the anxiety? Was I born with anxiety? Was I anxious when the kid put ketchup in my orange juice? No, no. Actually, I pretty much just ignored him. Okay, so at age 5, I didn't have anxiety. How about after they double dosed me and held me down? Yeah, a little bit, but still not too much. How about after a mother twisted my mind up and down, started trying to put words in my mouth, put pills in my mouth, bragging, doing all this crazy stuff? Oh, yeah, the anxiety started getting worse after I met this Patricia. How about by New Mexico by the time a black guy is choking me out? Oh, yeah, I have full blown anxiety and PTSD by then. I got overdoses, extra medication, my mother's twisting my head upside down, and we got an African American choking me out till I can't breathe, and I'm not being forced to eat literally rotten food, milk with chunks in it, and eggs that are very, very rotten. Only one time because the fridge broke, but it was either get choked out or eat poisonous food. Those were my choices. You had to sit at the table, you either eat the poisonous food, or we're going to strangle you with your own arms. But that was one individual guy that should have been working there. He was also torturing the other staff there too. There was like 30-year-old women that worked there too, and he was very aggressive with them too. So it wasn't just the children he was abusing. He was also verbally abusing the staff, women's staff, to the point where a lot of them quit. They did not like it. I mean, they're already having the commute 2.5 hours. Now they're going to have some African American yelling in their face, telling them to strangle kids. Yeah. And then when one of the staff member complains about Toby's video game class, and the other female brings us to archaeology and has us find our own fossils on the side of a highway, and it's really cool, he comes in there screaming at her and smashing all the fossils. So, yeah, that was more of a problem with one individual staff member in a program that had no policies, had no infrastructure. They didn't have the pool built, they didn't have the housing built, they didn't have the staff members, they didn't have the teachers, they didn't have any bug control guy. There was rattlesnakes all over the place. There was black bears and cougars and all different types, black widows under the sink. So it wasn't ready to be a program yet. But rich parents don't care about that. Just make sure we don't have to watch our kids. Just make sure we get the vacation, have our good time, and whatever you do to our kids, we'll worry about when you hand them back to us. So we have that. So I definitely have PTSD and anxiety. And the depression is out the window unless I'm already going to die. If I start like being in the woods in 0 degrees and I got scraped off the cement the last 3 weeks in a row and they pronounced me dead and then and then somehow I'm still alive, well, how the fuck you pronouncing me dead on arrival if I'm alive? I'm not dead. What the fuck? Don't tell me that shit. Don't come up to my bed, nurse, and tell me I was found dead on arrival and you guys had to bring me back to life. Don't tell me that shit. So when that happens over and over and over, yeah, I can see there might be a problem once when I'm facing it straight up. I try to go to the shelter. I can't go there thanks to my mother's and father's choices. I try to go to Social Security, but I can't collect thanks to my mother's and father's choices. I try to get a job, but I get injured and they won't let me work, so I can't work because of my mother's and father's choices. I try to sleep in a car, but they won't give me a license or let me drive because of my mother's and father's choices. So after a while, after freezing to death and getting injured over and over and over and over, I can see that that might be a problem again. But when I'm indoors, do I get this feeling of depression? Do I ever feel suicidal? Nope. Do I ever get depressed when I'm dying and suicidal? No. I'm angry, but I actually don't go into a sinking depression where you can't move and you curl up in a ball. But I did get a sinking depression during my childhood. There was even one time where I was in my room and I had depression for 2 days straight from my medication. I've never had that feeling off of those pills. But then again, at least 5 of the pills I was taking, clearly said on the packaging, may cause suicidal thoughts and depression. If your son exhibits any of these symptoms, call your doctor right away. Well, I exhibited those symptoms while taking 5 pills with that warning. Did my father and mother contact the doctor and take me off of that medicine? Nope, they doubled up. They kept on giving me more. First, they give me medicine that makes me feel suicidal or depressed and down. And then they give me more medicine for the side effects of that medicine. Then they give me more medicine for the side effects of that medicine. Then they give me more medicine for the side effects of that medicine. And then I'm a drooling mess that can't make any sense and I'm just all fucked up because I'm on like 8 pills a day that I don't even need. When all I really need is a Valium at night and a Ritalin in the morning and I'm golden. That's it. And as far as the neurological disorder goes, if my mother just did what I just said, then we wouldn't need to. But anyways, the neurological disorder can be treated with Ativan, but maybe the Valium can be throughout the day. I don't know. We really need epileptic medication. We really need a diagnosis. The doctors need to write down all I'm saying from beginning to end, when it started, what the symptoms are, what type of medications I was on, what doctors I saw in Westford, and then we got to scratch out all my mother's bullshit. We got to scratch that right out because that's good. When I talk to a doctor honestly without my mother's information, I get better. When the doctors try to treat me based on my mother's information, oh boy, do I start getting sick. That's the cause of my injuries. My mother is the cause. I wasn't born shaking and having seizures like this. I wasn't born feeling like this. No, it hit me during an overdose. I woke up on a pile of newspapers with this in my body after my mother gave me pills for life. So, that's what it's about. Okay. Well, how about this lawsuit I started in the beginning? Do I qualify for it? Absolutely. This lawsuit and this money is directly awarded to people like me. The doctor definitely gave me Seroquel because he knew my mother was full of shit and he wanted a new vacation and he wanted a lobster for a lunch and he thought that he could do it. So when I complained that I was having heart palpitations, headaches, these pills were hurting me, I told my mother, the doctor, everything, but my mother's calling the doctor saying, I want more pills, I want more pills, I want more pills, he's suicidal, I want more pills for my son. When you have a mother pushing like that, pushing for the pills, coming up with stories like how I bumped in the furniture, but yet I'm really self-harming, plus my mother's leaving out context. You think my mother told the doctor what I said about bumping my shins in the furniture or falling down? No. She just said I'm self harming on my shins. She left out all context, all information, and just got the drugs put into my body. So, but these doctors knew that. These doctors overprescribed the child Seroquel. So there is money on the table for me because they prescribed that for sleep and everything they weren't supposed to. I was also given Thorazine, what can cause some leg problems. And I don't know what's going on with my body, but I have a lot of problems moving my body, and I've had problems for my entire life. So I don't think it's caused by the Thorazine. But boy, has it got worse in the last 20 years. Started getting worse at about the age of 15 when my mother started upping all the pills. As soon as my mother started just forcing like 8 pills into me, oh boy, did my body get worse. Started drooling here and there. My vision would be off. I'd wake up with headaches. And I was telling my mother, the doctors, my father could see this very clearly. I even told my father, hey, I cut the back of my foot on a fence. And he believed it, but he didn't care because my mother was going to call the doctor the next day and tell them it was self harming. And then they're going to up more pills and get me more sick. So, yeah, they're awarding money to victims like me who have suffered greatly. I've suffered greatly from my mother's overdose. I've suffered greatly from her trying to cover up her crimes. I've suffered greatly from all the pills I was forced to take. I suffered greatly by the doctors and pharmaceutical companies taking advantage of my mother's mental illness and trying to take my father's money. I'm going to suffer for the rest of my life because of these other people's choices. But I got a problem. My father wants me to keep his little dirty secret to the grave. He doesn't want me getting help. He doesn't want me getting epilepsy medication because all that stuff requires him being honest and him going forward with this. Because let's say I do go forward with this. I get records that I was on Seroquel and I'm going to court. I'm going after the pharmaceutical company. I'm going after them for $2 million or whatever the fuck is going on. I'm trying to get epileptic medication from my other doctor because we know triliptal helps, and every epileptic medication I ever tried has done great wonders for me. So we're trying to get all this stuff figured out. I'm trying to get doctors. They're trying to get me housing, social security, whatever. But then they call my father and he goes, it's bipolar. He's mentally ill. It's a fantasy. It's a lie. He's a liar. He makes up stories. He makes up stories. Don't listen to him. Of course, they're going to bring that out in court. Of course, they're going to give that to the doctors. Of course, anybody who doesn't want to pay out is going to use that not to pay out. So I have to fight everybody because my father wants to lie and go along with fantasies that he knows isn't true. Because his daughter was there when my mother acted crazy. His son was there when she acted crazy. His other son was there when he acted crazy. His own grandson had problems with her because she was acting crazy. So his whole family has mentioned to him that his mother was acting very mentally ill and was in control of medications. And my father knows that I was on shitloads of pills and medications. He also knows there was a lot of weird stuff going on, like my mother calling my foot injury a self-harming incident, or during childhood the overdose that I'm mentioning at doctor's offices, or the fact that I'm moved every 2 years. I moved from Westford to El Paso, Texas to New Mexico, New Mexico to Maine to another place in Maine, to that place in Maine, to Chelmsford, Chelmsford to Haverhill, Haverhill to Lawrence, Lawrence to Chelmsford, and in between all that, Hawaii, Mexico, lots of vacations, but sometimes I don't go, sometimes I do, sometimes they can't find any place to shove me, but normally my parents will just shove me wherever they can so they can go themselves. But if they're having trouble shoving me someplace, then I get to go sometimes. And honestly, with my mother's crazy behaviors and the long lines of waiting, it got difficult. The long lines of waiting wasn't as bad as my mother in her behavior sometimes. It just was too much for me. A vacation is supposed to be a vacation, not, and if my mother is there, then I don't get a vacation. No, what I need to do is go with somebody like Tim on a vacation, my brother. Then I get a break from my mother and I'm on the beach of Hawaii or whatever. That would be a good vacation for me. Or just me and my father. My father can go do his thing on the cruise boat. I do my thing on the cruise boat. We're both very happy. But as long as my mother's involved, I don't get to relax. I don't get nothing. Nope. My mother's going to be up my ass trying to medicate me, yelling at me, trying to come up with fantasies the whole trip. And of course she did. On a cruise, my mother did try to get me to take medication constantly on the cruise. as well as I accidentally swigged booze because they wanted to hide booze in water bottles. I don't pay attention to what they're doing. That's none of my business. They told me to take pills. They told me I'm not allowed to take water out of the mini fridge because it's too expensive. I tried to bend down to take my pills in the sink, but the pills keep on falling out of my mouth because I'm having to bend so down to get in the sink. So I just go looking for a bottle of water. I find one. I take a swig. It's pure gin. I puke out my meds right into well, it's a spit up. Not quite a puke, but I felt like I was going to puke. Stuff like that ruins the cruise for you. But even if there was no liquor involved, I'm still going back there to take pills. And then in 1 hour, I'm going to feel like shit. Now, I've told my mother this already multiple times, but she already told me, don't blame the meds, keep taking them. Don't blame the meds, keep taking them. Well, mention it to the doctor. And I mentioned it to the doctor, and they doubled them up. So this is why these lawsuits are coming out in these horror stories. If you go online and look up seraquel horror stories, you'll find a lot of them. But mine, my father's trying to keep secret. My real life horror, my life, the real life I lived, my father wants to call a fantasy. And the bullshit that was just some imagination bullshit that my mother created, my father wants to live in there. He doesn't want to live in the real world, no. Then he has to take responsibility for his actions. As long as my father's living in my dead mother's fantasy, then I'm the one to blame for everything, and he's the golden father that did everything good, helped an orphan, gave him lots of money, and he's just some crazy kid. And then he gets to go along with that fantasy. Meanwhile, other people get hurt, sick, have seizures, die. Meanwhile, there's medical records proving what I'm saying. It's not like I'm just coming out with this now. I mean, this is something that's been going on for 25 years. At the age of 16, I mentioned that my mother was giving me extra medications. My mother admitted to it. She even said, so what that I give extra medications that my son is not prescribed? So what about it? She had this conversation in front of my sister, her husband, me, and my father. So this is nothing new. But my father would rather live in a fantasy than live in the real world because it's easier for him. I get to die and suffer. I get to have a horrible, horrible pain. I get no medical care. I can't work. I can't collect Social Security. I can't drive. I get to live in the woods like a chipmunk because my dad wants to live in a fantasy land. And he has money to try to just make sure that that's the way it stays. Meanwhile, I can't even walk down the street without having a seizure. I can't drive without having a spasm and a crash. I can't work. I can't collect my Social Security because my father lied to them and wanted to collect money early. So now that we know I have injuries, none of the doctors are going to listen because my mother and father already tried to get Social Security by making up fantasies and illnesses. So that makes it very hard for the doctors to help me now. But if they don't get my name, if I just talk to them, like when I first moved to New Hampshire, I do get help. Things do get better. I do listen and I do get better. But as soon as they get my mother's information about what she said about me, everything starts going downhill. I get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Why? Because the doctors are trying to give me my health care based on fantasies. They are helping me with fantasies that my mother created. That's it. They're prescribing me meds that my mother wanted me on. They're giving me treatments based upon my mother's information. And that's going to get me killed. My mother is a crazy woman who made up stories at the doctor's office. That is not going to help me at all. Listen to your patient. Listen to your patient. If your patient has black urine coming out of his penis and they took a video camera of it, maybe you should be working on his kidneys and not sending him to a psychiatrist. But see, if they don't have my name and I go in there with black urine, they look into it. But if I go in there and give them my name and they do a background check, then they just give me a psychiatrist because I have black urine. Because they think it's a fantasy. Meanwhile, over 40 people have seen the video and said, oh, nope, Zach, you're not imagining that. That is black. I have samples of it. Yep, that's black. Yep, that's black. Oh my God, that's dark brown. And even the emergency room even has one that's super, super, super dark brown, almost black. So they have all this evidence in front of them. But of course, the doctor doesn't even want to bother to look because it's your private parts. He thinks you're a psycho person who just wants doctors to look at your balls and dick. He thinks that you're just some fooling around asshole. Meanwhile, I'm scared because I just saw black urine coming out of my penis when I pissed in the sink. And now I have 3 samples that are blackish with a green tint. I fucking don't like that. I fucking don't like that. I want an answer. I want an answer. And I don't want to have you tell me that you're going to help me because my mother fucking lied. I don't want to hear psychiatrist because my urine is black. Psychiatrists do not help with kidney damage, infections, or black urine. That's what I'm here for. That's what I need to know about. I'm scared shitless because my urine turned black. What is going on? My kidneys are starting to hurt or something in that area and my urine is turning black. Tell me what the fuck this is and start doing some testing. That's what I'm here for. But instead, once when they have my name, before we even get to that part, before they even look at the video, before they even get a urine sample, they're right away to send me to a psychiatrist as soon as I tell them my urine turned black. That's it. I just tell them my urine turned black, I'm scared, and I want to know what's up. The first thing they do is try to send me to a psychiatrist. Then I have to push, and shove it down their throat. And then eventually they get a urine sample and they look at the video. And then what do? Oh, this is real. Oh, well, you need a urologist. Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, don't go to the psychiatrist. You need a urologist. I'm sorry. We thought that we were basing this upon your records. We had no idea this was real. What the fuck? Why would you think I would make up a story at the doctor's? I've never done that once in my life. Never in my life have I ever made up an illness and went to the doctor. So why would you think I start now? Well, your records say you have fantasies, mental illnesses, you lie, you steal, all that. That's my mother creating lies. She lied about me lying. She used to steal my swimming medal away and then say I stole it from an African American. I would jump in a pool and catch the back of my foot. She would say I'm self-harming. And then when I tell the truth about me just jumping in a pool, she would say I'm lying. When I was bumping in the furniture and things weren't, then she also says I'm lying and it's all an illness. My mother did this for years. And then when she gave me downers and I went down, she's calling me depressed. When she's giving me all these pills and I'm going all over the place, she's trying to make it in the illnesses. I understand that, doctor. But this needs to be handled the proper way. Okay, then you're going to need to go to a urologist. Thank you. What further testing can we do? Well, as long as we think that, as long as your mother and father are thinking and we are reading and thinking that this is some type of mental illness, your insurance isn't going to cover any testing. They're not? So you're telling me because my mother and father lied so much, made up so many fantasies and stories, my insurance is very unlikely to pay for further testing and get to the bottom of this kidney problem? Yeah, probably. You're gonna need more black urine incidents and you might need one of your kidneys to fail and maybe you might need to vomit some blood and you might even need your kidneys removed and go on dialysis before anybody even runs a test on you. You're kidding me. I might lose my kidneys before we even start testing? Well, yeah, I mean, your file basically says that you make up lies, fantasies, all this crazy shit, and it goes back 15 years. That's my mother. I understand that. I was living outside in the woods, homeless. Nobody understood what was going on then, and my mother spent 15 years lying to doctors, making up all these stories. She was definitely calling everything a fantasy. Anytime my mother was in trouble, this was their excuse. It's a fantasy. It's a lie. He's a thief. Don't listen to him. Don't help him. He's a liar. He's a thief. It's a fan. That's my mother's and father's go-to excuse. It doesn't mean it's not true, though. My mother did steal my swimming medal. She did give me an overdose. She did give me a whole bottle of Ipecac as a punishment. My mother did traffic me to Texas. My mother did bring me to New Mexico right after I told the doctor what was going on. She did then bring me to Maine. She did bring me to Massachusetts. She did then she definitely did over-medicate me by lying to doctors. This is all absolutely true. But when my mother and father ever get caught for these type of things, it's a fantasy, it's a lie. And then it gets put on my medical file. So of course, now that I'm 31, trying to get help with whatever's going on with my kidneys and turn my urine black, I can't even get a simple test done. Because my mother and father spent so much time lying and fantasizing about me that it's almost impossible for me to get anything done with a doctor as soon as they read everything my mother and father fantasized about. That's a big problem. But there's plenty of proof. Teachers knew my mother was doing this. They commented on it. My brother, there's many family members. My mother couldn't hide her psycho behavior. My mother was acting crazy. She was beating me with rulers across the face, throwing shoes at me that brushed me across like so close that it was an inch from my eyeball, literally a high heel. If that was an inch to the right, I would have lost my left eyeball. And then my mother would have lied and said, he did it to himself. He fell and did it to himself. No, I didn't throw a shoe at his eye. I didn't throw a shoe at his eye. No, he lost that eye all by himself. Even though the truth would have been my mother threw a shoe at her son's head and the high heel went through his eyeball. Luckily, it missed by just an inch. 1 inch is all it missed by, and it went zoomed right by my hair, and I could feel a breeze or a rub go by. 1 inch from my eyeball is all it would have took for my eye to be missing. And the worst part about it is if my mom did remove my eyeball with her high heel by throwing it at my face, she definitely would have lied to the authorities. No matter how many times I cried and tell anybody what my mother's doing, my mother's going to lie through her teeth. She's never going to admit that she removed her son's eyeball with a high heel because she was mad and throwing it at his head. There's no way my mother would have told that. No, she would have said I fell or I slipped or I was using her high heels for something, or she would come up with some fantasy. And that's what my mother was good at, fantasizing and trying to cover up with her. She was just trying to cover up her mistakes, that's all. She gave me an overdose. It was very clear I had problems moving my body after the overdose. She wanted to make sure nobody ever found out what she was doing to me. Plus, she wanted to make sure I got Social Security for being disabled, so my mother wanted to make me disabled, very visibly disabled.